Well, hello everybody. It's your old pal Ron Howard from Extreme Sequences bringing you another behind the scenes. Today's episode, the magical, magnificent Mega Tree. I get a lot of questions every year about my mounting of this, how I put it together, how I think about safety. And I think first I have to mention that this design is a concept of Walter Monkhouse. And I've used this concept and design for 6 years. And it's worked every year. Not without challenges here and there. And this year especially, for the first time, I deviated slightly in that I raised the bar. Or should I say the base? I raised the base. In years past, I would look at this from a very holistic approach, and that is safety, 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 functionality. And I don't deviate from that. So let's start with the portable hole. Many people will put a hole in the ground, put a bunch of concrete, and sleeve it up and screw the pole into that every year. Well, that's such a permanent thing. And I don't like to do that because sometimes I want my Mega Tree to be forward or back, and I'm trying new ideas and concepts for my layout. So I like the versatility of being able to put it where I want it. The first thing I do with a portable hole, which is 16 by 16, is place it, try to get a little bit of a level on it because it's not going to last long, but at least I want to try to get this as flat as I can. And you can see here, it's leaning back. And I'm dealing with the lean back, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I use 8 connections from the concrete to the turnbuckles to rebar at an angle. And these rebar are 4 to 5 feet. I think they're mostly 5 feet. They are these, so I'm going to say that's 4 feet. Rosa's a little taller than those. So those get driven in 8 locations. And this year I deviated, I got lazy, and I didn't put it on this one. 7. If my tree were to fall, it's going to fall that way, backwards, and I'll explain in a minute why it's designed to do that. I don't want it to fall at all. But with trees like this, with the tension on them, there are a couple places that we would call failure points. This is certainly one right here. You always have to pay attention to this. This is where a lot of pressure is, and this is where things can go wrong. I see a lot of people using black pipe. Thin. I believe this is 2.5 outer, 2-inch inner, if that's right, or 2-inch outer, 1.5 inner. I can't remember these days. But I would say it's 2.5 outer, 2-inch inner. And that uses a 2-stage ASAP assembly. And by the 2-stage, what that means is there's a couple pins up there that allow me to take the tree up to a point, bring the slip ring down, put the pins in, and then grab another chunk and send it up higher. And that works out great. This is a 2,000-pound winch. You can see Rosa, serial number 1 from Walter Monkhouse. We received one of the first ones of these to try out. You'll see here that this grabs, I believe this is 3/4 EMT here. And because I always have this weird fear, what if this were to buckle here and go plunk, just, and if it did that, guess what's going to come down? All of that. And I don't want that. So it's sort of, maybe it's a placebo, but it makes me feel better knowing that I've got just a little something extra here to hold this. You can see here, it may be time to start replacing some things. A little wear and tear after 6 years. You can see this has really gone through it. The winch is great. You can hear that tension on there. Okay, so one, get this flat as you can. Start tightening up. Use the level not only on this section that it's sitting on, but you want to put this up against here and start leveling it. That level looks pretty good. It's not completely flat. There we go. But try to get this as close as you can here, and you can adjust that with the turnbuckles below. Okay. Turning it over 90 degrees this side, you want to try to get a level on it so it's going straight up. This tree is not going straight up, and that's where guy wires and turnbuckles become your friend. We look at the back of the topper plate up there. I have two guy wires coming right down, and the point of this is to put tension on it so that the topper will be as flat as it can be. And it should be flatter than that. It's not, and I'm not going to mess with it. I don't like the way the pole's leaning a little bit forward. I've also added another guy wire back here to pull back the tree a little bit. If I move this around, you can see it's okay. Not going to fall forward. Another guy wire up here to this section to keep it balanced. Not super tense either. Then a guy wire over in this section, straight there. I would recommend that you also add, depending on the size of your tree, a guy wire on the front to come out to this section. We have a rule here at the Howard family household that the kids do not use this gate. They don't play on the trampoline this time of year, and they stay out of that side of the backyard should this fall. Now, it's not going to fall far enough, probably wouldn't even hit the trampoline. But I designed this so that if the tree were to fall, the goal is for it to fall backwards. I can replace fencing, I can't replace life. I can replace those trees, can't replace life. I can fix the house, can't replace life. That's very important. Another thing that I'm a pretty big stickler on is pixel alignment. And I can blame Walter Monkhouse on that. This tree this year, again, there's always these little weird challenges, and some of the challenges are, this is the Boscoyo strip that I've had for years, and I got a really bad roll of it the first time, and it was all replaced, and it was sort of fixed, but not really. What happens is, and it was just a compressor issue, you know, things happen. But the center on center, 2-inch spacing all the way up, is not exactly 2-inch center. And so what helps with that is having 2-inch J-bolts so that you can make these fine adjustments. I can push that down and tighten it up to try to get that alignment just right. 100%, you're never going to get there, but gosh, I really try every year. The only way to have an impact, a favorable impact on pixel alignment vertically and horizontally, is to have a flat base and a flat topper. Those two things have to work in concert. My topper's leaning a little bit forward, so that means I've really got to have a good, solid, strong, flat base, and this is pretty solid. I use rebar to help hold this down at every one of these junctions here. And this is a pipe tee, and you can see this is loose. I used to, every year, I would drill holes through here and put a pin in there, but it was still sort of lift, and this is just pipe. They never actually had the rebar I wanted, and it would have been a pain in the butt to drill through, but rebar or earth anchors or something else is a better solution than using this. But to compensate for it, the rebar really, really works. Long rebar at an angle, crossing it up, putting on hardware, tightening it down. this thing is just, it's just not going to come up. It's rock solid. And I do this in every section where there's a T. And then I put a level on. I get a nice either 2x4 or pipe that's super flat as can be. And I'll put that across from this side to that side over there, and then the center to the outside. All the angles I can possibly get to see how level it is. And that's the goal. And it works. I really use these as guides. These are about 4 feet long. These go in the ground. This is just so it slips over and I can get them fairly level, and then I can tap them down a little bit. But really, and the black paint there, once I have this where this is in the ground, I just spray around this, and then I know where to punch down for this pipe. But don't use this pipe as an anchor. It's not going to grab anything. As a matter of fact, you know, try to understand your soil conditions and make the appropriate decisions based on your soil. Clay, sand, loomy, rock bed, whatever it might be. And then make the appropriate decision on the type of anchors for your situation. This is what works for me. May not work for everybody. The base ring was professionally bent for me by a company in the valley called AccuBend. It's about $140. And I recently just cut off ends because I'm never going to go 360 or any more than I am here. This will support 36 strands. I'm actually only using 32 strands right now. I'm telling the tree it's 36. Still gives it the resolution in the sweet spots. But I'm only using 32, and that's plenty for this tree. I also put a lot of tape, or you'll see the little noodles there. People like to make fun of those. That's so I don't cut myself. With some health things this year, I have to be very careful not to cut myself, or, you know, it's not good. Okay. So let's talk about this lean. When we were putting this up, some of these were really tight, and it started pulling forward a lot more than that. So I brought it back down about halfway, put another guy wire in the back, and we started loosening the tight ones. And then I'd bring it back up a little bit, and this is cranked up there pretty good. I mean, it, like I said, it's you can hear the tension on that. And that's how you get pixel alignment and not a droopy tree. But you want to have something like this in the background with turnbuckles. My suggestion would also be maybe beefier turnbuckles, something that can pull a little more. And this is decent guy wire. I like this stuff because it's got the little plastic film on the outside, so it doesn't hurt your hands when you're working with it. I prefer that. Some people will call it aircraft cable. You can see here when you cut it, that you don't want to be touching that, especially if that slips through your hand. That won't hurt. That would probably hurt. Won't feel good. So this is the ASAP. 6 years I've been using this. This may be the last year I use this particular assembly. I may replace a bunch of parts. Just because, you know, 6 years wear and tear on this. Maybe it'll go another 3 or 4. I'm not really sure. But concrete and metal with threads has a stress point, and you have to be cognizant of that. The other thing I'll tell you that I use when getting the base ring aligned is a string with a knot in it. And when I pull this out, we should see this knot tighten up with tension to the center point. And I can tell by looking at this that my tree is leaning forward. This should be right about here. So I've got about a 1/2 inch to inch lean forward that I really don't want, but I'm not going to mess with it. It's not going to go anywhere. and it looks really good from the street. After a few days, or maybe even a week, depending on your weather, it's probably a good idea to retune the tree as things stretch and move. And it's a pretty simple process if you have the 2-inch J-bolts. I do not recommend putting turnbuckles on the bottom of your tree, because you're not going to keep the alignment the same. We really want this angle of these J-bolts to be similar to the angle that the string is going up. And then you can push that down and tighten it. All right, I know this is a very long-winded explanation of my mega tree and the assembly, but I think it's important for new people wanting to put a mega tree up to think about some of the safety that's important. Too many trees have fallen over the years. My tree has never fallen. And I think that has to do a lot with taking into consideration people who have done this before us, Walter Monkhouse and others. There are a lot of tree assemblies out there you can purchase. I haven't used them. I trust this. I don't know about those. I've seen a lot of failures, so be careful out there. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. We'll check you later.